Today we're going to do a work that we're going to use mixed media and also speaks to a social context or something cultural. So for me today, I worked with collage, I worked with paint, acrylic paint, I did some stenciling, and in the video I'll show you how I produced this work here, which is multimedia. So that means it's more than one medium being used. So we're going to work on a project like this, and hopefully you'll do something that is socially connected and also uses multimedia. Today we're going to make a collage, mixed media, painting, all of it combined. So what they call mixed media. So I was doing some collecting, I found some people running, I'm going to use them in the mixed media. I found some birds, then I found the birds, then I thought about using the birds with some guns in the scene, and then I'm going to cut out a stencil, we'll do a little stenciling, and see if I can put some buildings or something in the background and some paint. So we'll use a lot of the different medias together to create something that deals with a design, some kind of a design sense, and also something that has a little bit of a protest feel to it. Okay, so today what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a glue stick. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, a brush, a pair of scissors, sponge to do a little dipping, a little stenciling, and also a palette. This is a disposable palette, so I'm going to use acrylic paint. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around this bird here, and I have my cutting board here so that I can integrate the designs a little bit better. So I'm just going to cut around this bird. So, and I'll take my time and go ahead and do this. So now I'm just going to put some glue behind these so that I can use this as collage. Let's get this. There we go. Yes, I'm going to cover the entire surface of this thing with some glue. I'm using the back of an old sketch pad. You can also use the back of a sketch pad to cut. It makes for a good cutting board. Don't use your table. Okay, so I have that ready. And then the same thing with this one here. I'm going to make sure I cover this pretty good with the glue stick. This is make sure I get this nice and, yeah, that's good. Okay, so now I have these two pieces. So some of the imagery that I saw, they said to make something that's kind of cultural, something that relevant for you today. So I thought about guns, and then I thought about the birds, something I used on a painting that I did with Charlie Parker. And then I said, oh, it'd be interesting. I thought about Alfred Hitchcock, and how he had those birds attacking people. So these are from one image that I put together, and I have a little advantage because I can put two things together. So here I put these two together on Photoshop. I did have them separately. I could have cut these out and then paste them down, but just a little shortcut for the video. And now I'm going to take this image right here, the people running. Oops, I need to slide this one. The reason why I cut this out so that I can slide this one under this one and put the people running, kind of have them running like they're running, and the birds are coming down, attack. And then I saw this image here, the guns. These are the guns that are kind of like being poured out. And so these guns, they call them ghost guns, I guess because the people that owned them no longer own them. So now they're ghost guns. So I'm going to use the ghost guns and the people here. This is all this stuff is just my start, and then I'm going to do a little painting on top. So I'm going to cut out a stencil of a building. Let me grab a pencil, and this doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to make like a cityscape. A cityscape like this. And then I'm going to cut that cityscape out. So I have these two shapes, the negative and the positive, you know, there's one coming out, one going the other way. So you'll see how I'll use these. I'll play around with these. And I'm going to use my large brush. Now, I had this feeling, somebody asked me, what about a palette for the city? So, I mean, the city doesn't have to be somber, but I just want this scene not to be really bright, so I'm going to make it a little bit, I'm going to change the palette a little bit. And since I'm the teacher, I guess I should show you what I'm going to do. So here's our color wheel. So last painting that we did, we were over here in the greens. This time, I think I'm going to go over here, this side, in the blues, maybe over to the violet, and then we'll do the shades. So I'm going to use these colors, and then I'm going to add black, and then maybe a little white just to keep things gray, kind of on the grayer side. So you can see like this, the red, violet, violet, blue, violet, blue. We're going to kind of like work in this area instead of over here, and maybe we'll throw in something else. We'll see what we can do. So I'm going to do the same. I'm using the same paints that you'll be using. I'm going to use a blue. This is ultramarine blue. This is cadmium. This is like a cadmium type red. Naples red, crimson. This is a cadmium yellow medium, and it's also cadmium free. It's something new that they're coming out with now, so it's a lot safer. This is the black that I'll be using, and then I'll be using the titanium white. So I'll be kind of like using these two to kind of like gray things down, and then I'll basically be using these two. So I'm going to start out with it. I'm going to mix a little bit of color for the background. And one thing about these acrylic paints, they are like a glue. You know, you can almost use them as a glue. So if you were painting and then put paper down as a collage, you could actually literally use this as a medium to glue down too, just as much as I would use the medium to lay it down. So you may see me use a little bit of this to thin stuff down. I like to thin it down with the acrylic medium instead of trying to thin it down with water. It seems to keep the paint consistency a little bit better. So let's get going. Okay, so what I did is I put a little blue down, a little black, and put some white in here. I wanted to keep it on that gray, blue-gray side, and then like I said, I would put a little maybe a little violet in there too, so I need a red to give me that. So I'm gonna start out now by mixing like a. I don't want the blue to be too strong, so I'm gonna add a little black to it, just to make it into like a neutralize it a little bit, and then I'll put some white into it. So it'll give me a nice blue gray. And now I'm just going to take this paint, just lay it in here, paint right over some of this imagery. Just paint right over it. Nope. And over here, just kind of. I'm going to thin that down a little bit, put a little bit of this medium in it. Thin it down. So this is going to make it into what we call like a glaze. A glaze is like a thin layer of paint. So I'm going to put like a thin layer of paint over here. Give it a little atmosphere. And I'm moving fast so that if I move fast with the acrylics, I can go back in and do a little wiping. So I can go back in here and wipe some of the birds out so I can bring them up a little bit. And paint around them. So what the idea is to make this part of the actual collage itself. It's more like painting and collage. So I can go in here and paint around the birds, and then a little more blue, add a little blue in there. So the paint's right there like this. I can just kind of like move the black while it's still kind of wet. And keep that. And I'm working with a big brush. Don't be afraid to use the big brush. Over here, a little more blue, a little more white. Get close to this blue white here. Okay. And you know me now. Starts out a little messy side first, and then we kind of like put it in detail. Well, we'll get there much faster with the paint. And this is how you can kind of like get those clouds and stuff in there while the paint is still kind of, it's still a little wet. Yeah, you can just kind of like softly put them in there. Put that atmosphere in there. Actually, this kind of use that paper, get that first coat of paint on it. Put some more blue and neutralize it a little bit with some of that black while it's still wet. Dry, take the brush and take the paint off and just kind of like smooth it around a little bit. In here, make it look like it's going birds. We'll do this, kind of like dab it. So I got that. Kind of get this kind of atmospheric thing going. A little bit more color. It's easier to do, like put in the go dark first and then go light if you're trying to blend anything. It's better to do get the darker passages down first. And this is how you can make the acrylic look like it's like an oil. Sometimes people think that I'm working with oil paint when I switch over to the acrylic paint. So now I'm kind of like working like a little scumbling, what they call it, just a dry brush. Not a lot of paint on this brush, but just enough just to kind of like put a little paint down to change the values a little bit. Give it that atmosphere. And then bring some of that down here in the ground here with these figures. Dabble it around a little bit. Here. So get a little bit of that atmosphere. So now we can begin to integrate this a little bit more. So now in the background here, I'm going to use my stencils and let this dry a little bit. I'm going to come back into this with the stencils and we're going to put a little bit of the buildings in the background. If you happen to have one of these hair dryers, these are good to use. Sometimes I just Okay, so what I'm going to do is put this piece of paper down here. That's going to be my stencil. And I'm going to take my sponge and just sponge up a little bit of this paint here. You can see I'm not even, just kind of like rubbing around here. And then I'm going to sponge it down. Now you can stencil almost anything, you know, it doesn't have to be, I'm doing buildings, but you know, you could do figures and cut out figures. I'm just going to use I'm kind of using the same colors, close to the same colors as the background a little bit, so that the buildings will kind of go into the background. And then you notice I'm kind of going right over my birds. It looks like I'm messing them up, but I'm not. I'm going to bring them back. So here, we'll put some, and then we'll pull the stencil up. And so now you can see like that city kind of scape coming out with the atmosphere, kind of like blowing through. Could even throw a little more. Let me see. I don't know. If it was New York, it would have. I can put a little bit more in here. Right. Background. Yeah, so it kind of looks like it's going back in space. And you can see how fast, I mean, this is really kind of like one of the quickest ways of creating something. So here I got my truck dumping out stuff. I was thinking of writing something. I might put some words in here somewhere. So the next thing I'm going to do, let this dry, and then I'm going to go back in and bring out the birds again. I could use paint or I could use pencils. I'm going to try pencils first. And just kind of go over these figures again, bring them back out. And I can do the same thing with the birds. Could use paint or, in this case here, you know, get rid of this line here. Maybe make this look like it's coming into this area here. So it's mixed media. Mixed media means, as almost as it sounds, you can mix different medias together And these are water soluble watercolors, so if I put water to them, it'll change it to a paint. So I'm not going to put water to them in this case because I don't want these to run. So here I got the figures. See, now I got the figures coming back. So I didn't worry about all this stuff that I was doing. And I'll go back into this thing here and just bring these characters right back. Now they're running out of in the atmosphere. And they're coming out. So now you can see how we bring the birds back out, kind of keep it atmospheric, keeping these birds like in the background a little bit. have these kind of like blurring up a little. You know, you can only do that by, you know, mixing the media, by using a little bit of paint and using, I wish I didn't use the glue stick because it's lifting a little. I may have to use a little bit, when it dries I may use my medium like glue or something under there because it doesn't quite work as well. But most of it's pretty good. This area is pretty good. I might do a little, I was thinking maybe some red dots just to make it, give it a feeling like city, like lights or something like that in there, but I'm gonna play around with that. So that's basically it. This is basically it. You know, try to work on something that's kind of has like a cultural theme to it. For me, it's like it's the city. And then I was telling you, like I was thinking about like this kind of atmospheric thing with the today, especially today was rainy and dry and gray. So I thought about that, and then they were talking about the militia and the guns, and so that was on my mind. So I thought about that, and then they said that these were like angel guns. So I guess they meant like when they, or ghost guns that were brought back from criminals and things like that. And this is a dump truck dumping out all of these guns. So, and then there are people running, you know, like kind of like running from the birds for their lives. And like it seems like right now we're kind of like we're all trying to, with this pandemic and the political climate, we're all kind of like running and trying to work on our lives. Maybe I'll put some masks on these. If I could, maybe just maybe that's what I'll do for the red. So the complement. So all this is kind of like gray, murky blue, and then I'll throw in a complement. This is kind of like a complement here too. It's kind of like a warm color here, but most of it is kind of on the gray side. Okay, here's the final work with a little bit of embellishments. I did added a little bit of this violet in here in the background, just a little bit. I put in some signs here showing the peaceful protest moving away from the guns over here. And you can see them being attacked by these birds that are coming down, but still they're in peace in the city. So now we'll do the unveiling. Take away the tape. It's always the nice part to see how it looks at the end when it makes for a nice, neat presentation. Let me see it that way, and then also you can zoom in a little bit so you can see some of the details. So, protesters moving away. There's the guns, the power of guns here. So hopefully you will enjoy this project. Remember, it's multimedia, so you can use many different types of media. I use collage, I use some color pencils, I used a little bit of acrylic paint, I used a stencil to make the buildings in the background. So the sky is the limit. You can try a lot of different things. You can use any medium that you like, any combination of mediums that you would like.